Nikon ZF has a very big problem when you want to shoot flash, and I really don't understand why the influencers and why Nikon didn't address this yet. So I want to show you the fix. I found a fix, but it's a trick here that is working. I hope Nikon in the future updates will not ruin this trick, because I feel they especially limited the use of the flash on Nikon ZF. So let's talk about this now. Hi there, Tudor Matescu here. In this video I want to address how to shoot a flash on Nikon ZF if you want to use a flash and have fully manual control over your flash, and if you don't want to use a dedicated Nikon flash. Let's say you want to use a Godox flash or an old flash or this Godox EM30. This flash, it is so small and so good. So let's take it simple. On other cameras, Sony, Fujifilm, let's take for example Fujifilm, you can disable live view. So you can disable the live view of your settings. So if you set your ISO to 100 and your aperture to f5.6 and your shutter speed to 1/250, you'll see a black screen, of course, because the camera will show an underexposed image, because the camera doesn't take into consideration the external light from the flash. So the screen on Fujifilm will look like this, but I've set a custom FN touch and boom. Now X106 and even very old Fujifilm cameras, again Sony cameras and so on, will not show me the effects of my settings. So a natural view, like you are using an optical viewfinder. But here we don't have an optical viewfinder, and yes, you don't need an optical viewfinder to shoot a flash, it's not normal. So you need this function on your camera. Well, on Nikon ZF, you in theory have this function. So let me show you now how you must set your camera to use flash, and I will show you the problem, the bug, the bad implementation, and I'll show you my trick how to do this. So first, if you want to do flash and have fully manual control over your flash and not use a dedicated Nikon flash, you need to first connect the flash, of course, open the flash, it doesn't matter for the moment, and then set your Nikon ZF in the manual mode with this switch. So you are putting your Nikon ZF in manual mode. Next, disable auto ISO, because when you will change the ISO with the dial or with other settings, of course auto ISO will engage. So disable auto ISO. For this I've set this button, so I'm pressing this button and I set auto ISO to off. And now I can manually set my ISO using this dial. So easy peasy, I have full control over the ISO. Okay, I set my aperture using this dial, so the value of the aperture. So if I will set my ISO to 100, let's say, aperture to f4 and shutter speed to 1/250, because this is the maximum sync for the flash, look what it will happen. So the image is dark. For this, in a normal camera, you should have the function to set a custom button. And for my luck, I have this function, but again, it's an error. And the error is working in our advantage. But before setting your custom button to disable the live view effects on your screen, of course, you must go into the menus to search for that function, to see if that function is working, and after that set an FN button for this. And on Nikon ZF this is called live view. Of course, live view, good. So for this we will go into the settings menu, shooting display, D menu, and we will go to the D9 live view. Okay, and what I have here, show effects of settings. I go into these settings as I'm showing on the screen, and I have always, so it will always show the effects. And after this I have this crazy function in the menu, unacceptable from my point of view, only when flash is not used. But of course Nikon ZF doesn't see this flash, even if it's triggering the flash, it doesn't see the flash. So I have always my screen black. So this was a big bummer for me, because I've said, okay, I'm not a flash shooter, but it's not normal. This camera should help me use any flash, and I should have the advantage of using such a retro camera like other cameras. I have all cameras that are working with this flash. I have old mirrorless cameras that are working with this flash because I have this setting. I can disable the live view effects and I can see the image. So anyway, after playing in the menu, I am able to see that I have on the custom buttons the live view function. So go to controls, custom controls shooting, F2, and then set FN to view mode photo LV. So this setting here. Personally, I was afraid when looking at this setting that I will not get anything because in the main menu, I don't get anything. But surprise, big surprise. When I'm pressing this FN menu, boom, it's working. The live effects are disabled and the camera is able to focus because the camera wasn't able to focus in such situations. Of course, it's not working. So there you go. This is the trick. Of course, I've searched the manual, I've searched on Reddit and no solutions online. So this is my solution. Set an FN custom button to live view and it's working even if it's not accessing the D9 function from the main menu. So the function from this custom button is working as it should work, as you would want it to work, but it's overriding the menu. That from my point of view, it's bad. It's bad implementation. So I'm really glad that I was able to find this trick and now I'm able to shoot Nikon ZF with a flash when I want to use a flash. I've heard that this function, so flash on Nikon Z8, it's working okay. You have that in the menu, but you don't have this on Nikon ZF. So this is my solution to shoot Nikon ZF with a flash. Now it's working, but I hope now showing this in a future firmware update, Nikon ZF will not take from us this function, and better said, please Nikon, put that function into the menu. Shoot without live view when you are shooting in manual mode. This is the idea. The idea is not to have in the menu, don't show effects just when you are using flash. No, don't show effects when the user doesn't want to show any effects on the live view. I want to use my live view or my EVF like an optical viewfinder. Why I can't do this? Maybe I'm using different lights or maybe I want to do different stuff with the camera. Doesn't matter. Maybe I want to shoot this camera as a film camera and don't want to see the live effects in my viewfinder. So I need to have this setting. Yes, I have this setting now with the FN button, but I think this is a glitch in the Nikon ZF firmware. So anyway, I'm glad now that I was able to discover this setting regarding Nikon ZF and how to shoot with a flash on Nikon ZF. So if you are liking content like this, please subscribe now to my channel, subscribe to my newsletter for more photography tips and tricks, and also leave me your comments and please be sure to check my next video. Thank you and I will talk to you soon. Bye bye.